First, the highlights. Supreme Court reserves judgment on emergency rule in Rivers State. Court remands Kano's brother, 10 others in Kuje prison. Tinubu urges judiciary to remain impartial, incorruptible. West African energy regulators harmonize fuel prices. Trump warns Hamas not to breach Gaza peace deal. And Super Eagles battle for playoffs chance to qualify, according to Ikpeba. Ikedieze urges Nigerians to prioritize mental health. Welcome back. Supreme Court has reserved judgment in a suit challenging the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu in March. A 7-man panel led by Justice Iyang Okoro adjourned after parties in the suit adopted their processes on Tuesday, and the plaintiff in the suit are the Attorney General of 10 states, while the defendants in the suit is the federal government and the National Assembly. At the day's proceeding, the 5th plaintiff, Delta State, withdrew from the suit, which was not opposed by the counsel for the federal government, Lateef Fagbemi-San, and while adopting this process, counsel to the plaintiffs, Eyitayo Jagadesh-san, who represented the plaintiffs, said their case was not a denial of the president's power to proclaim a state of emergency, but to challenge the extent to which the proclamation can be made to affect the offices of the governor, deputy governor, and the State House of Assembly. In his argument and in response to the court's question, counsel for the federal government and Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, said the plaintiffs have not been able to prove that there was no crisis involving the governor and the executives which prompted the president's action in March to proclaim emergency rule in Rivers State. The senior lawyer also submitted that the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, Ngozi Odu, and members of the State House of Assembly were not removed but suspended as part of extraordinary measures required to bring decorum in the state, stressing that the president had no choice but had a duty to act the way he acted in declaring a state of emergency, and therefore urged the Apex Court to dismiss the suit in its entirety. Counsel for the National Assembly, Charles Yohila, aligned himself with the AGFC's submission and urged the court to dismiss the case. More members of the People's Democratic Party in Bayelsa State have dumped the party following the resignation of Governor Doye Diri. Diri, along with members of the State's Executive Council and House of Assembly, had resigned from the PDP on Wednesday, and his next political move remains uncertain as he is yet to make a formal declaration about his new party affiliation. Speaking at a stakeholders meeting in Yenagoa, the group said their decision was in line with the governor's political direction and ideology. The former PDP members, led by the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Gentu Emela, did not disclose their new party, but affirmed their loyalty to Diri and also dissociated themselves from the position of the member representing Yenagoa Constituency 3 in the Bayelsa State House of Assembly, Ted Elemeforo, who did not resign with other legislators, and described Elemeforo's stance as personal and not reflective of the will of the people. Chairman of Yenagoa Local Government Area, Bulodisiye Ndewari, reaffirmed the constituency's loyalty to Diri, saying the people of Yenagoa Constituency 3 believe in Governor Diri's vision and will follow him wherever he leads. Similarly, the special advisor to the governor on petroleum oil, Frank Otele, said the constituency's leaders had met and resolved to align with the governor's political path. Apex body of traditional rulers in Anang Land, Akwa Ibom State, the Afe Nkuku Anang, have summoned Mrs. Patience Akpabio, sister-in-law to the Senate President Gospel Akpabio, and her husband Ibanga Akpabio to appear before it within 7 days over alleged defamatory and inciting social media posts against the Senate President. In the communique issued on Monday after its meeting at the Ati Anang Secretariat, Ikot Ekpene, the monarchs expressed deep concern over the malicious and unguarded statements allegedly made by Mrs. Akpabio, accusing the Senate President of being linked to multiple killings in Akwa Ibom State during his tenure as governor. In one of our recent Facebook posts, Patience Akpabio wrote, For all the people you people have killed when you were governor of Akwa Ibom and those you people have killed now that you are in the Senate, it will not be well with you. Therefore, in Koko Anang in its communique signed by His Royal Majesty Obong Cosmos Okon Akpan, Paramount Ruler of Esian Udim Local Government Area and President Akoko, Professor Amanam Akpanudo Udo, Paramount Ruler of Etim Ekpo and Vice President and Engineer Dr. J.J. Obosi IV, JP Paramount Ruler of Orok Anam Local Government Area, said the matter had lingered for too long in the social media space must now be addressed in line with Anang tradition. The royal body condemned what it described as a vulgar and unguarded language employed by Mrs. Akpabio, stressing that as a woman married into Anang land and specifically into the distinguished Akpabio family of Esian Udim, and also she is expected to uphold the dignity and moral values of a marital home and community. Abia State Governor Alex Oti has dismissed reports claiming he has dumped the Labour Party for the All Progressives Congress APC following speculations making the rounds on social media alleging that Oti has defected to the APC. In a swift response, the Abia State Commissioner for Information, Prince Oke Kanu, described the report as a fabrication by political propagandists unsettled by Oti's consistent delivery of good governance and his growing popularity across party lines. The commissioner, while stressing that Oti remains a committed member of the Labour Party, said the publication is a desperate attempt to distract the people and sow seeds of confusion where none exist, adding that Alex Oti remains a committed and proud member of the Labour Party, the platform under which the good people of Abia State overwhelmingly elected him to serve. He urged the public to disregard the false reports and treat it as another cheap propaganda orchestrated by those whose aim is to divert attention from the progress being recorded in the state. Anambra State government has dismissed alleged plans by Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo to arrest and jail religious leaders, especially Catholic bishops, after his re-election. A statement issued by the State Commissioner for Information, Dr. Law Mefo, on Tuesday, the government dismissed the report as fabrications aimed at undermining peace in the state, adding that the governor respects the rights and freedoms of all citizens, including religious leaders, and urged residents to disregard the false reports. Mefo said the government remains committed to combating fake native doctors, fake Indians and Wai, and fraudulent clergymen, which has given rise to Oso Suludo, and this fight must continue. The Anambra governorship election is due on November 8, 2025, with Soludo seeking re-election on the All Progressives Grand Alliance platform, contesting against about 16 other candidates. Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke says he has no plan, either now or in the near future, to dump the People's Democratic Party for the All Progressives Congress APC. Adeleke made this statement shortly after the inaugural meeting of the Accommodation Subcommittee of the Convention, adding that everything would be sorted out so that the convention could proceed smoothly. Adeleke, who is the deputy chairman of the National Convention Organizing Committee of the PDP, also said the party would come out of its crisis stronger. Federal Capital Territory High Court sitting in Maitama, Abuja, has fixed November 13, 2025 for the hearing of the ongoing dispute over the Apo Resettlement Market Scheme. The defendants and applicants, through their lawyer Riwan Okmanachi, filed a motion as seeking and order compelling the claimants respondents to pay the sum of 50 million naira as punitive costs for their alleged deliberate refusal to comply with a court order made on April 15, 2025. The matter, which was scheduled for Tuesday, was stalled due to the absence of the presiding judge, Justice Yusuf Halilu, who was attending a workshop at the National Judicial Institute, and a court official had communicated the new dates to all parties. In an earlier ruling delivered on April 15, 2025, Justice Halilu granted an interlocutory injunction restraining all parties, particularly the claimants, from continuing any form of construction work on the disputed site, pending the determination of the substantive suit, and the order was made in response to an application by Tex and Concrete Nigeria Limited to preserve the status quo. In the motion currently before the court, the defendant's counsel is therefore seeking an order mandating the claimants to pay 850 million naira as punitive and exemplary damages for allegedly disregarding the court's order and for the demolition of structures already built on the disputed land in violation of the injunction. Magistrate Court sitting in Kuje, FCT Abuja, has remanded the brother of Nnamdi Kanu, Prince Emmanuel Kanu, and his lawyer Aloy Ejimako in Kuje prison. The remand followed their participation in the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu protest on Monday in Abuja, and Nnamdi Kanu's younger brother Kanuta Kanu disclosed this in a post on X shortly after the court session on Tuesday. The court document to this effect was shared by former national chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Nigeria, his HRCN, Professor Chidi Odinkalo, via X on Tuesday, and police charged them for inciting disturbance and breach of public peace in disobedience to a court order. The suspects were accused of denying other citizens the freedom of movement, disrupting free flow of traffic while chanting war songs and requesting for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, adding that the protests would be charged to court after investigation. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Nyesom Wike, says President Bola Tinubu has set a record in the FCT, adding that no previous administration has beaten the record of Tinubu's renewed hope agenda set in Abuja. Wike spoke during commissioning the newly provided engineering infrastructure in Wuyet District, and while appreciating God for 20 days of flagging off of projects and commissioning in the FCT. Wike said if there is any administration since the inception of the Federal Capital Territory that has beaten President Bola Tinubu's record, let him speak up now or forever remain silent. Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule says the mass defection of governors, senators and other top politicians from other political parties in the country into the All Progressives Congress is due to the ongoing reforms by President Bola Tinubu's administration, which are aimed at taking the nation to greater heights. The governor, who disclosed this in Lafayette, the state capital, during the welcoming ceremony of Senator Ahmed Wadada, representing the Nasarawa West Senatorial District at the National Assembly, back to the APC from the Social Democratic Party, and commended President Tinubu for being courageous enough to make decisions for the benefit of the country. Governor Sule also commended Wadada for deciding to leave the Social Democratic Party for the APC and assured that he and his supporters will be given equal opportunities to thrive in the party, stressing that ahead of the 2027 elections, the executives of the party had decided to support only credible and popular candidates to represent the party during the various elections in the state, including that of the governorship. While appreciating Governor Sule for his leadership qualities and his numerous support to the party over the years, Bello said the governor had done enough to ensure for the party to progress steadily, adding that he returned to the APC with his teaming supporters from the SDP and other opposition political parties in the state will improve the leadership style and his political antecedents. While declaring his complete loyalty to Sule as a leader of the party in the state, he urged the governor to continue the hard work in order to sustain the peace currently enjoyed by the residents. Sokoto State Governor Ahmed Aliyu has unveiled the Northwest University Teaching Hospital, established by former Governor and Senator Aliyu Wamako, describing it as a golden legacy that will forever be remembered and cherished by the people of the state. A statement by the Sokoto Director General of Media and Publicity, Abubakar Bawa, on Tuesday during the inauguration ceremony, Aliyu said the hospital's establishment marks a major milestone in advancing medical education and healthcare delivery in Sokoto and the Northwest region, and urged the management and staff of the hospital to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and compassion in the service of humanity. Ali also outlined his administration's efforts to strengthen the state's health sector, revealing that the Radiographers Registration Board of Nigeria had approved an internship training program for graduates of radiography, and further highlighted other achievements, including the automatic employment of 122 indigenous doctors trained by the state, deployment of 1,675 nurses and midwives across health facilities, and the enactment of a 2-year compulsory rural posting for state-sponsored health professionals. According to the governor, healthcare remains one of the key pillars of his administration's 9-point smart innovative agenda, which earned the sector the second largest allocation in the 2025 budget. Police in Jigawa State have apprehended 3 suspects for alleged drug peddling in the state. A statement by the spokesman of the command, SP Shishu Lawan, on Tuesday indicated that operatives of the command apprehended the suspect on October 18 at Garaki, Fagam, and Maigatari during a coordinated intelligence-led raid across the state. The spokesman said the suspects, named withheld, had been on the police wanted list for allegedly being involved in the distribution of illicit substances in the state, and the command seized 23,944 illicit drugs during the raid, and two of the suspects hailed from Kano State and Niger Republic. He said the suspects will be charged in court on completion of the investigation, and the command arrested no fewer than 105 suspects during simultaneous raids across the state, and the arrests were confirmed by the police public relations officer, SP Shishu Adam, while addressing journalists at the command's headquarters in Duse, the state capital. According to him, the raids led to the recovery of over 5,000 illicit drugs and intoxicating substances, including cannabis and various hard drugs, and also highlighting the scale of the operation. President Bola Tinubu has tasked the Nigerian judiciary to remain steadfast, impartial, and incorruptible in the discharge of its duties. In a post on the official X handle of Vice President Kashim Shettima, Tinubu warned that the collapse of any society don't with interpreting its laws. This comes after the president's remarks at the Economic and Financial Crime Commission (EFCC) and National Judicial Institute (NJI) workshop for justices and judges held in Abuja. Was presented by Vice Kashim Shettima said his administration remains committed to improving the welfare and working conditions of judicial officers, stressing that recent remuneration reviews form part of broader efforts to strengthen judicial independence, and also reaffirmed that the moral foundation of the Nigerian nation rests squarely on the integrity of its judicial system, adding that justice must remain a guiding principle for peace and progress. The president also addressed growing public concerns about delays in the adjudication of high-profile corruption cases, contrasting them with the faster resolution of cybercrime matters, adding that the judiciary plays a pivotal role in preserving public trust and must demonstrate fairness, transparency, and efficiency in handling all cases, especially those involving economic and financial crimes. President Tinubu further said his administration's commitment to justice reform goes beyond remuneration and aims at providing the judiciary with the autonomy and tools required to perform its constitutional responsibilities without interference. President Tinubu has nominated Dr. Bernard Doro from Plateau State as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and had forwarded his name to the Senate for confirmation. Doro's nomination comes after the elevation of Professor Nentawe Goshwe Iwada, the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, who was elected National Chairman of the ruling All Progressives Congress in July. Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, who declared the nomination in a statement issued Tuesday, said the President, during a private meeting with close aides on Monday evening, expressed his intention to name nominees to occupy 2 vacant portfolios in his cabinet, including that of the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, who resigned weeks ago. According to records, Dr. Bernard Doro was born on January 23, 1969 in Kwal, Basa local government area of Plateau State, with more than 2 decades of experience spanning in clinical practice, pharmaceutical management, strategic leadership, and community development in both the United Kingdom and Nigeria. Beyond his medical and administrative expertise, Doro has been active in youth, mentorship, and social impact initiatives in both the Nigerian diaspora and local communities. Vice President Kashim Shettima has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's commitment to advancing girl-child education across Nigeria, adding that the administration's focus on inclusive learning and nutrition for all children. A statement issued by the Office of the Vice President on Tuesday, Shettima highlighted the importance of government initiatives such as the school feeding program in promoting education and reducing the number of out-of-school children. Speaking during a meeting with the delegation from Plan International led by its Director of Program, Quality and Innovation, Helen Umfonobong Idyong, the Vice President also invited a teenage girl, Joy Oga, to symbolically take over his seat as one-day Vice President and advocate for the girl child. Shettima also praised the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, describing her as a symbol of how a properly empowered and supported girl child can blossom into a great leader. Senate will on Wednesday consider a motion seeking an upward review of the pay package as well as conditions of security personnel. This is coming following the motion titled Urgent Need to Increase the Minimum Wage and Improve Conditions of Service for Members of the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies, sponsored by Senator Ali Indume, representing Borno South. Indume is asking his colleagues to consider the fact that Section 217, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended gives the security services, especially the armed forces, the responsibility of defending Nigeria's territorial integrity and asks the Senate to note that the consolidated salary structures for uniformed services, example CONAFs for the armed forces and analogous structures across MDAs, as well as hazard and operational allowances, group life insurance and pension provisions are intended to reflect the risks and burdens of service. Ndume said the current remuneration and minimum entry-level wage for many personnel across the services have been outpaced by rising living costs and also drew attention to reports of overstretch, attrition and financial hardship among junior and mid-level ranks. The increasing cost of essential goods as well as transportation, accommodation and schooling, and the burden on families of deployed personnel. The former chairman of the Senate Committee on Army said the current minimum monthly wage for junior personnel in the armed forces ranges between 50,000 naira and 60,000 naira depending on rank, which is grossly inadequate in light of the current economic realities, including problems of inflationary pressures and rising cost of living in Nigeria. Senator Ndume equally expressed concern that the current wage level does not reflect the magnitude of sacrifices made by Nigerian troops to further dampen their working morale. Senate has passed a bill prescribing life imprisonment for anyone, male or female, found guilty of sexually defiling minors in a move to stem the rising tide of child sexual abuse across the country. The passage of the bill comes amid mounting national outrage over increasing cases of pedophilia and child molestation, which have left many victims physically and psychologically scarred. While reports from rights groups and law enforcement agencies in recent years show that Nigeria has witnessed an alarming surge in cases involving children as young as 5 being sexually assaulted by adults, including family members, teachers, and clerics. Presenting the motion, Senator Adams Oshomole, APC Edo North, stressed that the offense of defiling a minor should be treated differently from that of raping an adult, while Deputy Senate President Senator Jibrin Barau also supported the motion, insisting that offenders should face punishment without the option of a fine. Although Oshomole's initial 20-year jail term proposed gained traction, it was later rejected after Senator Muhammad Adamu Aliero, Kebbi Central, argued that the punishment should be stiffer to serve as a deterrent, and his position was immediately backed by Senator Solomon Adeola Ogun West, who maintained that the gravity of the crime warranted the maximum penalty. The bill's passage is expected to serve as a deterrent amid growing public concern that many child rape cases go unpunished due to weak enforcement and social stigma. Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned the trial of Kogi North Senator Natasha Akpotu-Dwagan over alleged cybercrime to November 24. This is coming after Natasha was arraigned on June 30 on a 6-count charge filed by the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation, Mohammed Abubakar, and she was granted bail, following which Justice Umar adjourned till September 22 for the commencement of trial. Natasha, in the charge, is alleged to have transmitted false and injurious information via electronic means with the intention to malign, incite, and endanger lives and breach public order. And the senator was alleged to have, while addressing the gathering on April 4 in Ihima, Kogi State, accused the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, of instructing ex-Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi to have her killed in the state. She was also alleged to have repeated similar claims to the effect that the Senate President and former governor plotted to kill her in Kogi, and the charge was brought under the Cybercrimes Prohibition Prevention Amendment Act 2024. House of Representatives have resolved to intervene in a recent face-off between members of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria and Dangote Refinery, which had disrupted petroleum product distribution nationwide. The resolution of the House followed the consideration and adoption of a motion of urgent public importance, co-sponsored by Kano and Sokoto lawmakers Al-Hassan Doguwa and Abdulsamad Dasuki, respectively, at Tuesday's plenary. The face-off between Pengassan and the Dangote Refinery led to an industrial action which commenced on September 29, 2025, disrupting the operations at the $20 billion refinery, and also led to a disruption in Nigeria's crude oil production, with a reported daily loss of approximately 200,000 barrels over 3 days, adding that the disruption worsened the petroleum supply situation across the country, resulting in scarcity and long queues at filling stations in several states and other severe hardships suffered by millions of Nigerians. Speaking on the motion, Doguwa, who represents Doguwa and Todun Wada Federal Constituency, Kano State, stressed the need to protect the Dangote Refinery, giving its strategic significance to the nation's economy, adding that the House is aware Dangote Refinery is a strategic private investment of immense national importance with the potential to guarantee energy security, reduce import dependency, generate employment, and conserve foreign exchange.
worried that if private investment of strategic national importance are continually subjected to unlawful disruptions by adversarial unionism, Nigeria risks not only the failure of key economic assets, but also the erosion of investor confidence necessary for national growth and economic development.
The House, in another motion moved by Honorable Philip Agbese, called for an investigation into over $1.8 billion and $2.8 billion grants received from the Global Fund and U.S. aid between 2021 and 2025 for health interventions, which was adopted.
The House concerned that despite this significant investment, Nigerians remain burdened by public health threats, including 15,000 AIDS-related deaths among children between the age of 0 months to 14 months in 2023 alone. Of 51,000 AIDS-related deaths in 2023, ranking Nigeria third globally in HIV-related deaths, the highest malaria burden globally, with 26.6% of cases and 31% of deaths worldwide.
The Green Chamber also requested details of federal interventions to states and local governments outside FAAC allocations from 2023 to date, following a motion by Honorable Abdul Samad Kasuki, Gombe State.
House aware that while these interventions are vital to addressing specific financial and developmental needs at subnational levels, the absence of a consolidated public record for these disbursements may undermine transparency, hinder effective oversight, and limit public accountability.
Meanwhile, a bill to establish the Nigerian Police Force Pension Board and exempt the force from the contributory pension scheme has passed third reading and awaits presidential assent. House of Representatives have urged the Minister of Finance Wale Edun and the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Olayemi Kadoso to submit a detailed report of all financial aid granted to states and local governments aside from the statutory monthly allocations distributed through the Federation Account Allocation Committee from 2023 to date. The resolution of the House was sequel to the adoption of a motion at plenary moved by Sokoto lawmaker Abdul Samad Dasuki, who raised concerns over the absence of transparency and public access to information on financial advances to states and local governments by the federal government, adding that over the years, the federal government introduced different financial interventions initiatives aimed at addressing the effects of economic policies and supporting infrastructure development at the lower tiers of government. Aside from disbursements from the Federation account, other intervention schemes include budget support loans, infrastructure development funds, and ecological and emergency relief grants, as well as other conditional and discretionary aid. And this lack of documentation, according to Mr. Dasuki, has raised trust issues, making the oversight function of public institutions difficult. The House further mandated 8 committees on finance, intergovernmental affairs, and public accounts to scrutinize the report, once submitted, consult relevant agencies, and ensure that all such interventions comply with the principles of accountability, transparency, and value for money. The committees are to submit their reports within 4 weeks for further legislative action. We're going on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue with the rest of our stories. Do stay tuned.
These are exciting times for broadcasting in Africa. The National Broadcasting Commission is set to host the 14th Biennial Conference and Exhibition of African Broadcasters, Africast 2025 in Lagos, Nigeria. Participants will experience a week of world-class expositions showcasing the very best in creativity, innovation, and cutting-edge broadcasting technological advancement and trends in the global broadcast media ecosystem. Theme: Navigating the Digital Surge, Building a Resilient Africa Media Ecosystem for the Future. Date: Monday, October 20th to Friday, October 24th, 2025. Venue: Balmoral Convention Center, Sheraton, Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria. Time: 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Visit www.africastexpo.com or email info@nbc.gov.ng. NBC, your right to quality broadcasting. Announcer Management.
welcome back and thank you for staying with us. And now on to the rest of our stories. All Progressives Congress has planned to enhance inclusiveness and multiplicity within the party by prioritizing and strengthening representation for women, youth and people with disabilities through a constitution amendment process. Addressing party officials, stakeholders and supporters during the party's first public hearing on constitutional amendments in Calabar, the APC National Vice Chairman, South Victor Giadom, said the exercise aims to gather members' voices, ensure inclusiveness, and adapt the Constitution to evolving party and national needs. Giadom described the APC Constitution as the cornerstone of internal democracy and embodiment of collective values and aspirations, stating that President Bola Tinubu has ordered an expansive and all-inclusive amendment of the party's constitution to fill gaps, accommodate the expansion of the party's organs, and correct any existing grey areas. In his remarks, the South representative in the APC Constitutional Amendments Committee, Alphonsus Eba, said the committee is saddled with the responsibility of holistically amending the party's constitution to expand and accommodate women, youth, and physically challenged persons, and also highlighted that the constitution amendment shall include expanding the National Executive Committee to accommodate former governors, strengthen representation for women as well as youth and persons with disabilities. Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has issued a 4-week ultimatum to the government to conclude negotiations with all academic and non-academic unions in higher institutions of learning, stressing that the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the Nigeria Labour Congress have united in the move to fight for lasting solution to the incessant instability in academic calendar of universities in the country. The NLC said, with the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Colleges of Education and Academic Staff Union, Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Polytechnics, among others, over the ongoing strike in universities and other concerns raised by workers in tertiary institutions nationwide was held at the NLC National Headquarters in Abuja. The NLC had invited all union leaders across various tertiary institutions of learning nationwide to a meeting in order to find lasting solutions to issues stemmed from failed negotiations with the federal government. This is coming after ASU National President Professor Chris Piwona declared a strike at a press briefing at the University of Abuja on Sunday, following the expiry of a 14-day ultimatum issued to the government on September 28, adding that the union cited the unresolved issues relating to staff welfare, infrastructure, salary arrears, and implementation of the 2009 ASU-FGN federal agreement. The union is demanding full implementation of the 2009 agreement, release of 3.5 months of withheld salaries, sustainable fighting, funding for universities, protection against victimization, payment of outstanding promotion and salary arrears, and release of withheld deductions for cooperatives and union contributions. National leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, ASU, has commenced discussion today, Tuesday, to evaluate its position on the ongoing strike by its members. The development comes after ASU disclosed that the government's renegotiation team, led by Alhaji Yayale Ahmed, came to the negotiation table with a documented response to the union's demand and made some offers to it, such as the release of third-party deductions, areas of promotions, mainstreaming of earned academic allowances, EAA, confiscation of University of Abuja land, and victimization of its members in KSU, LASU, and FOTO. This is coming after ASU members on Monday held congresses across 8 branches in the various universities to vote on whether the union should suspend or continue its labor action, and the union had given a 14-day ultimatum to the federal government for the inclusion and implementation of the renegotiation of the 2009 FGN/ASU agreement, as well as addressing other demands of its members. However, there is indication that ASU wasn't ready to throw in the towel yet, as feelers that many of the branches have voted in support of the continuation of the strike, and according to them, their members in the separate branches were in support of the continuation of the strike, despite some offers being made to ASU by the federal government. Meanwhile, the National Labour Congress (NLC) has given a 4-week ultimatum to the federal government to meet the demands of ASU and other unions in tertiary institutions or risk a nationwide shutdown by Labour. NLC President Joe Ajaero made the threat in Abuja on Monday following the meeting of the union and leaders of tertiary institutions-based unions, adding that the 4 weeks was to enable the government to address all the outstanding issues of the unions, including the 2009 agreement with ASU. Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has scheduled an extraordinary National Executive Council meeting to review the 30-day ultimatum earlier issued to the federal government. While addressing the National Officers Committee, CACO's leaders, center presidents, and general secretaries, the association said the meeting will be held virtually on Saturday, October 25, 2025, and the agenda of the meeting is to review the ultimatum and evaluate the government's response to the association's unresolved demands. This is coming after NAD had, on September 26, given the federal government a 30-day deadline to meet a series of outstanding welfare and policy demands affecting its members, adding that residents, doctors, and medical officers across the country will continue to endure excessive and unregulated work hours, spanning several consecutive days, which endanger both their health and patient safety. The association also raised concern over the non-payment of the outstanding 25% and 35% upward review areas of CONMES, which should have been settled by the end of August 2025, despite several engagements with the federal government, and further described as unjust the dismissal of 5 resident doctors from the Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja, saying the action came amid widespread burnout and the ongoing migration of medical professionals abroad. It further decried the exclusion of resident doctors from the specialist allowance, despite their vital role in delivering specialist-level clinical care to patients nationwide, and also faulted the exclusion of medical and dental house officers from the civil service scheme, a policy that has denied them rightful emolument, professional recognition, and timely payment of salaries. The association also condemned the downgrading of newly employed resident doctors from CONMES 3 Step 3 to CONMES 2 Step 2, which has resulted in salary shortages and arrears in several federal hospitals, as well as the slow progress on the collective bargaining agreement between the Nigerian Medical Association and the federal government, stressing that the CONMES salary structure has not been reviewed in over 16 years, and disparities with CONHES allowances remain unresolved. African Democratic Congress has cautioned the federal government against using the recent reports of an alleged coup plot as a pretext to clamp down on opposition leaders or stifle dissenting voices. A statement by the party's National Publicity Secretary Bolaji Abdullahi warned that any attempt to exploit the rumored coup for political gain would endanger Nigeria's democracy and fundamental freedoms. The ADC said the federal government had not made a categorical statement, on the alleged plot, even after the military's repeated denials accused the All Progressives Congress-led administration of acting out of desperation, and warned that such conduct could undermine democratic stability. Ohaneze in the Igbo community in Lagos State has expressed optimism about President Bola Tinubu's chances of securing a second term in office ahead of the 2027 general elections. Chief Sunday Ude, President General of Ohaneze in the Igbo, who disclosed his declaration during a reconciliation parley convened by Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adedinon, popularly known as Jando, lead visionary of the Lagos for Lagos movement, said the meeting focused on fostering harmony between Yoruba and Igbo residents following recent demolitions in the state. Speaking with the newsmen, Ude urged both ethnic groups to continue living in peace and mutual respect, warning against sentiments capable of creating divisions, and also described President Tinubu as an experienced leader who understands governance and deserves another term in 2027. The Ohaneze leader called on the Lagos state government to continue engaging with the Igbo community and other ethnic groups to ensure inclusiveness and unity, adding that the relations between Igbos and the Lagos government had become strained after the 2023 elections, but assured that renewed dialogue and collaboration would help strengthen mutual trust and togetherness. 2 vehicles, a 2020 Toyota CHR and a 2019 Toyota RAV4 that were stolen in the Netherlands and illegally shipped into Nigeria, have been recovered by the Nigeria police. The vehicles were tracked by officers from the Interpol National Central Bureau, NCB in Abuja, alongside Interpol NCB The Hague in Lagos and Akwa Ibom, respectively. The cars were stolen from the cities Amsterdam and Midden, Netherlands, and reached Lagos by late 2023 via the port of Antwerp in Belgium. The Federal High Court in Abuja had a final order for the forfeiture of the vehicles, and the court granted a ruling in favor of the Dutch government via the vehicle's insurance company. The order enables the legitimate return of the vehicles to the Netherlands. Following the court decision, Interpol NCB Abuja 2 team has transferred custody of the recovered vehicles to the representatives from both the insurance company and the embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands in Nigeria. The police statement also said the Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetekun had commended the Interpol operatives for their professionalism. Nigerian Education Loan Fund has declared the official opening of its student loan application portal for the 2025 and 2026 academic session providing access to financial support for students across tertiary institutions in the country. The agency said the application window will run from Thursday, October 23, 2025 to Saturday, January 31, 2026. A statement issued on Tuesday by NEFON's Director of Strategic Communications, Oshayemi Oluwatuyi, urged fresh students to apply using the admission number or JAMB registration number in place of a matriculation number, and appeal to tertiary institutions to show understanding regarding registration and fee payment deadlines for applicants awaiting loan disbursement. National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has unveiled a new digital platform designed to streamline the process of obtaining drug integrity tests and visa clearance certificates as part of efforts to enhance transparency, accessibility, and efficiency in its operations. The platform Drug Integrity Test and Visa E-Administration System was launched on Tuesday in Abuja by the NDLEA Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Brigadier General Mohammed Marwa, retired, who described the initiative as a paradigm shift in our fight against a scourge of substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking. Represented by the agency secretary Shedrack Haruna, Marwa said the online system aligns with President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda and reflects NDLEA's balanced approach to drug control, focusing on both supply reduction and demand reduction. He said the new system automates all processes related to drug integrity testing and visa clearance, integrates with partner agencies, and eliminates human interference and delays, stressing that applicants can now log on to the NDLEA website to create accounts, book appointments, and complete their applications without visiting NDLEA offices. Marwa also said the drug test certificates will be generated on the spot, while visa clearance certificates will be issued within 3 days or a maximum of 1 week in special cases, adding that the system includes e-certification and verification features to prevent falsification of documents and strengthen Nigeria's international credibility, while supervisory dashboards will enable real-time monitoring across NDLEA commands nationwide. And now to some business news. West African midstream and downstream energy regulators have concluded plans to form a new forum to harmonize fuel prices and strengthen petroleum product trading across the region. The move was one of the key outcomes of the inaugural West African Refined Fuel Market Conference, jointly organized by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and S&P Global Community Insights, which took place in Abuja recently. According to a communique issued by NMDPRA's Public Affairs Department on its website, the West African Regulators Forum and a technical working group will be considered to ensure effective coordination of the conference, outcomes, and follow-up actions. The NMDPRA, in collaboration with the African Refiners and Distributors Association, said the forum would ensure that timelines contained in the roadmap are adhered to by strategic, adding that challenges in intra-African trade such as infrastructure gaps, tariff barriers, exchange rate bottlenecks, and lack of uniformity in product specifications, as well as other key outcomes from the conference, included the provision of incentives for expansion of refining capacity, establishment of independent and transparent price assessment for the region, evolution of innovative funding schemes by African financial institutions for regional infrastructure, and development of a harmonized pricing framework and product quality standards by relevant government bodies. The communique also said stakeholders agreed to create petroleum products and natural gas trading hubs in Nigeria and the convening of an annual conference on the West African refined fuel market. And now to international tidbits. Cameroonian refugees and residents in Calabar, Cross River State, have urged President Paul Biya, 92, to concede defeat in the recently concluded presidential election and celebrate the victory of the opposition leader and winner of the election, Issa Shiroma Bakari. This is coming after Bakari and his supporters called for his swearing in, insisting that they won the October 12, 2025 election fairly, while President Biya, one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, who have ruled Cameroon since April 1982, following the exit of President Amadou Ahidjo, was seeking an 8th term in office. Cameroon is next door neighbor to Nigeria by the eastern flank, and speaking in Calabar on Tuesday, several Cameroonian citizens, many of whom fled the Ambazonian insurgency in the country's southwest since 2014, warned Biya's handlers to put Cameroon's interests above personal ambition and avert further international embarrassment. According to them, Biya is hardly aware or in tune with contemporary happenings in the country and alleged that Biya no longer governs directly and that the cabal has been manipulating state processes in his name, and further called on elections Cameroon and the Constitutional Council to validate the results in the nation's interest. However, the Cameroonian government said only the Constitutional Council has authority to declare a winner and warned that premature victory claims could amount to high treason. Ghanaian police have opened an investigation into the suspicious death of Sheikh Toure, a 20-year-old Senegalese footballer whose body was taken to a hospital last week. The former probe came after Senegal's government said Toure was the victim of a scam and extortion orchestrated by a network of fake recruiters before being murdered by his captors, adding that Toure arrived in the hospital in the city of Kumasi on Thursday with abdominal injuries caused in circumstances that remain unclear. Minister of Youth and Sports also said before being kidnapped and killed, Toure, a resident of the East Street Football Academy in the town of Yombol near Dakar, came to Ghana hoping to make trials in Morocco, adding that they were conducting a thorough investigation into the exact circumstances surrounding the young footballer's death. Senegal's foreign ministry, meanwhile, has sent 2 representatives from its embassy in Ghana to assist the authorities and the victim's family to repatriate his body. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to eradicate Hamas if it breached its ceasefire deal with Israel as Vice President J.D. Vance traveled to the region Tuesday to bolster the fragile Gaza truce. The Trump administration has redoubled its effort to cement the fragile Gaza peace agreement. It helped to broker after Israel accused Hamas of stalling the handover of hostages' bodies, and deadly violence flared up in the territory over the weekend. Both sides have said they are committed to the U.S.-backed truce. Despite the weekend's violence, and Israel confirmed that Hamas handed over the body of a more hostage on Monday, taking the total to 13 of the 28 it had pledged to return. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said in a statement that Hamas had to make good on its commitments to return the remains of all the hostages in order to implement the ceasefire agreement and needs more time and technical assistance to complete the recovery of the bodies. The ceasefire, which went into effect on October 10, established an outline for hostage and prisoner exchanges and proposed an ambitious roadmap for Gaza's future. Parts of the White House's East Wing have been demolished as construction begins on U.S. President Donald Trump's new ballroom. Construction crews tore down massive chunks of a covered entryway and windows in the East Wing, which Trump said is being fully modernized. He said the project is being privately funded by many generous patriots. The identities are unclear still, as the White House has not released any names of who might be funding it. The White House has served as the historical home of the U.S. president for 2 centuries. The East Wing was constructed in 1902 and was last modified in 1942. The covered entryway, which spans much of the East Wing's south side, appeared as though it was being gutted, with concrete debris and metal cables clearly visible from several hundred meters, showing the construction on the East Wing of the White House. European leaders have joined Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in insisting that any talks in ending the war in Ukraine should start with freezing the current front line, and warn that Russia is not serious about peace. A statement signed by 11 leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, they said they strongly support US President Donald Trump's position that the fighting should stop immediately, adding that the current line of contact should be the starting point of negotiations. But Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Tuesday dismissed the idea of halting the conflict at the current contact line, and the European statement referred to Russia's stalling tactics, indicating how intractable Moscow's position remained. Trump, who has often adopted a conciliatory tone towards Russia, is now planning direct talks with Putin in Budapest, although the date for a preparatory meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Lavrov seems to be skidding. Workers in the southern Tunisian city of Kairos launched a general strike on Tuesday following weeks of protest over a chemical factory residents blamed for a spike in serious health issues. Thousands have recently rallied in the city of some 400,000 inhabitants to demand the closure of a state-run phosphate processing plant, which they say is behind the rise in gas poisonings. After it ramped up production, the plant, inaugurated in 1972, processes phosphate to make fertilizers and some of the gases and waste it discharges into the open air and Mediterranean are radioactive and can cause cancer. Researchers have found while over 20 people have been hospitalized in recent weeks for respiratory distress and gas poisoning. This is coming after in 2017, the Tunisian government promised to gradually shut down the factory, but earlier this year, authorities said they would instantly ramp up production at the plant, and the solid waste contains radioactive elements, which also impacts soil quality and groundwater. Sanai Takaichi has won a historic vote to become Japan's first female prime minister. This is 4-year-old conservative is known as Japan's Iron Lady, and she's an admirer of the UK's former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. She will have to answer to the country of 120 million people, many of whom are struggling with high inflation and rising costs. She will also have to tackle the country's discontented voters, some of whom voted for far-right parties after simmering discontentment with mainstream politics. Before entering politics, Takaichi, a heavy metal enthusiast who still enjoys playing the drums, was a newscaster and also likes to scuba dive and fondness for vehicles. France's ex-president Nicolas Sarkozy has become the first former head of a European Union state to be jailed on Tuesday, proclaiming his innocence as he entered a Paris prison. France's right-wing leader from 2007 to 2012 was found guilty last month of seeking to acquire funding from Muammar Gaddafi's Libya for the campaign that saw him elected. Dozens of supporters and family members had stood outside the former president's home from early Tuesday, some of holding up framed portraits of him. Earlier, they had sung the French national anthem as neighbors looked on from the balconies, while Sarkozy's lawyer, Christophe Ingrain, said a request had been immediately filed for Sarkozy's release. The Paris Appeals Court, in theory, has 2 months to decide whether to free him pending an appeals trial, but the delay is usually shorter, while Sarkozy is the first French leader to be incarcerated since Philippe Pétain, the Nazi collaborationist head of state who was jailed after World War II. And here now is ATN Sports News. Former international Victor Ikpeba says it is important for the Super Eagles to grab the chance to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup through the playoffs. Eric Chel's side failed to secure automatic qualification despite a convincing 4-0 home victory over Benin Republic last week. The 3-time African champions, however, did enough to earn a place in the playoffs, having finished second in Group C behind the Bafana of South Africa, and they will square up with the Panthers of Gabon in an all-West African affair in the semi-final of the playoffs in Morocco next month. The winner will face either Cameroon or Democratic Republic of Congo in the final, and Ikpeba reckoned it is important for the Super Eagles to qualify for the World Cup. And now, entertainment news. Nollywood actor Chinedu Ikedieze, popularly known as Aki, has called on Nigerians to prioritize mental health awareness, adding that emotional well-being is just as important as physical health, and called for more advocacy. Ikedieze said the issue of mental health should not be taken for granted, as many people silently struggle with personal and environmental challenges. According to the actor, he recently attended a mental health conference in Namibia organized by Echoes Africa Initiatives, a charity organization based in New York where he served as a guest participant, adding that the event opened his eyes to the importance of emotional discipline and self-awareness in coping with life's pressures. He also said the experience was worthwhile and encouraged more Nigerians to engage in open conversations about mental health, using platforms such as workshops and movies to reach wider audiences. And that's the global news for tonight. But before we go, another look at the major stories. Supreme Court reserves judgment on emergency rule in Rivers. Court remands Kanu's brother, 10 others in Kuje prison. Tinubu urges judiciary to remain impartial and incorruptible. West African energy regulators harmonize fuel prices, and Trump wants Hamas not to breach Gaza peace deal. Super Eagles battle for playoffs chance to qualify, according to Ikpeba, and Ikedieze urges Nigerians to prioritize mental health. I am Favor Chief Question Michael. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on social media platforms on Twitter at Atlantic TV Net, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, and on Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. And don't forget, peace and unity at the path